Today's Spotlight is brought to you in part by presenting sponsor, First Community Financial Bank, the community bank where you come first. Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm your host, Jane Wynette, and joining me now from the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders are Maria Rago and Holly Curtis. So welcome to the set, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you here, and we're excited to learn a little bit more about ANAD. That's the acronym, right?
Yep, that's
okay,
it.
so I was going to try to get that right. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, ANAD is the world's oldest eating disorder organization. It was founded in 1976, which doesn't seem that old, except it is our 40-year anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're really excited. And our main functions that we do are we try to provide support and advocacy for people with eating disorders and their families.
Okay.
So that usually looks like running support groups all around the country and going more international with support groups, such as Holly runs and is, how long have you been running your group?
About a year now.
Okay.
Yes.
So Holly's been really active.
Been involved for about 25 years.
Okay, okay.
So we run support groups around the country, and that's really important because people tend to feel very isolated and confused and alone if they have an eating disorder. And when they can have a support group, or when like the parents or the family can have somewhere to go and talk, it really means a great deal to people. And then we also provide advocacy, trying to help people understand about treatment or what kind of treatment they can get. And then we like to advocate for size acceptance across all people because that's really helpful for the cause of eating disorders as well.
It's interesting, you made me think a little bit when you said it's sort of a new organization, 40 years. Did we hear about anorexia prior to that, or did it really sort of come about at that time? I'm sure it existed before, but...
Probably Karen Carpenter. I know I was afflicted with my eating disorder at the end of the 70s.
Okay.
And I was in New York, and you would think in Manhattan if you can't get good treatment, and there really was no specific program or treatment. I went into a psychiatric facility. I think Karen Carpenter had just had a heart attack, and that was really the only, I think, awareness that people had of this disorder.
So you really started, I mean, you started right at the ground level.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting story because Vivian Meehan is the woman that started ANAD, and she had a daughter that had an eating disorder. Well, a family member had an eating disorder. She was worried, and she sent out a note in the newspaper, because back then there was no internet.
Right.
And she got volumes and volumes and bags of mail back to her ad in the newspaper. So people were really hungry for support and people to talk to. And she helped actually get treatment started in this country because she got doctors together talking and communicating, and this started people being able to get good care.
It's really inspiring. I mean, and usually necessity is the mother of invention, and it sounded in her case it was very personal necessity, but what a wonderful way to launch that out
and
to
she
other
was
people.
a nurse practitioner, and I think she went all over and calling and saying, help, does anyone have any help or no? And they said, no, we really don't. So she sent out an ad saying if anyone else is suffering, and she got like 100 hits in the first week.
She really
and said, we haven't, there's a need.
She changed the world because people didn't have any way to connect, and she connected
kind of bring
so
that
many
together.
people of how to collaborate together.
Right.
Now, Holly, you do the support groups. So tell us a little bit about the support groups.
Right. So again, I had suffered 8 years before I found a group. I went to Northwestern, and I had been in and out of treatment and therapists. And I will say, when I walked into the group and found it, it was like this relief that overcame me. I didn't feel alone. There's shame. Eating disorders are very private. I walked away feeling like so much had been lifted off of me that night, just like there was someone else that was going through what I was going through.
You weren't alone.
Nobody talked about it, right? Yeah. And it literally was the mirror I needed to say, oh my God, I'm doing this. You know, I'm feeling so sorry for these other girls that are trying, going, I like her. Oh, that's awful. How can she do that to herself? So for me, to really get me to be honest with where I was and what I've been doing to myself, it was amazing. So I now, all these years, I'm 24 years recovered. I think the biggest and most important resource is for us, for recovered, individuals to help one another. I just think there's a real bond and trust because we've been through it.
You
can
know.
go to a program, but nobody knows, right? I mean, how I could read about war in a history book, but when I talk to a veteran, oh boy, it's a different.
There's empathy, and then there's having lived it.
So I just see the response of girls that come in and the relief and the hope, and then I help talk to the parents. And it's really just having someone share their story is so powerful.
And I want to mention guys too.
Yeah.
Because people tend to think it's a women's disorder or girls' disorder, and I think the numbers right now are about 20 million women and girls, but 10 million males.
I have about 4 boys in my group.
I just want to. We're used to saying girls, girls, but it's really doing a disservice to the males because they really suffer and struggle just as much.
And I want every shape and size and color. You are all welcome. We are all suffering from an eating disorder. I want every gender, every age, every race to come in. Parents, we all. Get help. Get help.
Now, what do you think is driving so much of this? Because you talked about, that's a staggering statistic, 30 million.
Well, the reason I think it's growing so much, it went from the 70s, 80s, I think Twiggy the model and some of the pressure for thinness made it especially more prone towards females. But in the 90s and going forward, we have this war on obesity. And it is causing even 5-year-old children to be afraid of gaining weight or afraid of being fat. It's been shown that they know to be afraid of it, and you shouldn't be fat. So now it puts this pressure and this terror on kids and boys just as much as girls, and it drives people to diet. They don't know what to do. So they and the doctor tells them you're too fat, but then they start dieting, and then they don't know what are you supposed to do. Diets fail; they don't work. But we tell them to diet. We tell them not to eat so much, and it just backfires. Some of the biggest loser stuff that's been coming out in the media has been actually showing why, because people's metabolism shuts down when they diet, and they're not able to eat as much. So some of the studies even show.
Yeah, and I also think, we have so many social issues that are so heightened. And I think even for me, I was dealing with suicide in my family, and I felt totally out of control with my life. And I think it finds its way into your life when you're a child or you've suffered trauma and you're not choosing a drug or alcohol, or you're in a family where there's not the support and resources. You soothe. You either overeat or you undereat. It intuitively
it's a mechanism for control.
It's a control. Right. When you are feeling so out of control of your life, so it really does come in to your life and find its way.
Okay. As we wrap up, I want to make sure that the viewers know, how can they reach out? How can they connect to your support groups? What's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, we would absolutely love to help anyone. They can call us on the phone. We have a helpline. I didn't mention we have a helpline. People can call if they need help anytime.
Google, get as much research as ever.
And then they can come online. We have a list of our support groups on our website too. So we'll help them connect with anything they need.
And I just want to say to anybody who's suffering, again, keep going, move forward. You can recover. You can say no to your eating disorder. You chose it in your life. You can unchoose it. A small step, you have that power. And I just say, please, families, love them unconditionally. Help them remember all they've lost to their eating disorder, right? Love them back. Love them back. You can recover.
Very nicely said. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been very educational, and I'm sure you're doing so much good work for so many people that really need that help. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
If you would like to learn more about the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, please visit their website. We're going to take a quick break, but stay tuned. We're coming right back with more Spotlight.